Part 1. The disease that is killing you. Laziness is not what you think it is. It's not just about being tired. It's not just about not wanting to work. It's not just about procrastination. Laziness is a disease, a mental infection that spreads through every corner of your life until it consumes everything. Your dreams, your potential, your future, everything. And here's the truth nobody wants to hear. You are not lazy by accident. You became lazy. You trained yourself to be lazy. Every time you chose comfort over effort, every time you chose distraction over action, every time you chose the easy path over the hard one, you reinforced the pattern. You programmed yourself for weakness. Most people think laziness is something that happens to them. They blame genetics, they blame circumstances, they blame their environment. But that's a lie, a comfortable lie that lets them avoid responsibility. Because if laziness just happens, then they're victims. And victims don't have to change. But you're not a victim, you're a participant. You chose this, not consciously perhaps, but through thousands of small decisions, you built the lazy version of yourself. And now that version controls your life. It dictates your actions. It limits your potential. It steals your future. The ancient wisdom understood this. Long before modern psychology, long before self-help books, long before motivational speakers, the ancients knew that laziness was a spiritual disease. They knew it corrupted the soul. They knew it destroyed men from the inside out, and they developed protocols to eliminate it completely. These weren't gentle suggestions. These weren't motivational tricks. These were brutal, uncompromising systems designed to rewire the human mind at its deepest level. Systems that turned weak men into warriors. Systems that turned confusion into clarity. Systems that turned laziness into unbreakable will. But first, you need to understand what laziness really is. Because if you don't understand the disease, you cannot cure it. And most people have no idea what they're dealing with. Laziness is not the absence of energy. It's the mismanagement of it. You have energy. You always have energy. When something excites you, when something threatens you, when something demands your attention, the energy appears instantly. But when it's time to do the hard work, the important work, the work that actually matters, the energy vanishes. Why? Because your brain is programmed to avoid discomfort. It's programmed to seek pleasure and avoid pain. And hard work is painful, discipline is painful, growth is painful. So your brain creates resistance. It makes you feel tired. It makes you feel overwhelmed. It makes you feel like you need to rest first, prepare first, wait for the right moment first. But that's a trap, a neurological trap designed to keep you safe, keep you comfortable, keep you exactly where you are. And the more you give into it, the stronger it becomes. Until one day you wake up and realize you've spent years doing nothing. Years waiting, years planning, years preparing, and you have nothing to show for it. This is the disease. This is what's killing you. And if you don't eliminate it now, if you don't cut it out completely, it will consume the rest of your life. Part 2. The ancient protocol revealed. The ancient protocol is simple, not easy. Simple, because complexity is the enemy of execution. The more complicated the system, the easier it is to fail. The ancients understood this. They built their protocols on 3 fundamental pillars that cannot be negotiated, cannot be modified, cannot be ignored. The first pillar is immediate action. Not tomorrow, not later, not when you feel ready. Now, this moment. The ancients believed that the gap between thought and action was where weakness lived. The longer you wait between deciding to do something and actually doing it, the stronger the resistance becomes. Your mind fills the gap with doubt, with fear, with excuses, so they eliminated the gap. When a task appeared, they executed immediately. No hesitation, no negotiation, no internal debate. The decision and the action were one. This trained their minds to associate thought with execution, not with planning or preparing or waiting. You need to implement this immediately, right now. As you read this, there is something you need to do, something you've been avoiding, something you've been putting off. And the moment you finish this sentence, you will stand up and do it. Not the whole thing, just the first step, just the first action. No thinking, no preparing, just moving. Because movement kills resistance. Movement creates momentum. Movement proves to your brain that action is possible. And once you prove it once, you can prove it again, and again, and again, until immediate action becomes your default mode. The second pillar is physical discomfort. The ancients knew that the body and mind were connected. They knew that if you trained your body to endure discomfort, your mind would follow. So they deliberately exposed themselves to physical challenges: cold water, long walks, heavy labor, fasting, not as punishment, as training. When you train your body to be comfortable with discomfort, you train your mind to be comfortable with resistance. You teach yourself that discomfort is not dangerous, it's just uncomfortable. And if you can endure physical discomfort, you can endure mental discomfort, which means you can do the hard work, the boring work, the tedious work that lazy people avoid. Start small. Wake up and immediately expose yourself to cold water. Not a full ice bath, just cold water on your face, on your hands, on your body, for 30 seconds. That's it. But you do it every single day without exception, and over time, you increase the duration, you increase the intensity, you train your nervous system to handle discomfort without panic. Then you add physical challenges. Walk longer, distances, carry heavier loads, do more repetitions, push past the point where your body wants to stop, not to the point of injury, but past the point of comfort. Because comfort is where laziness lives. Discomfort is where strength is built. The third pillar is daily elimination. The ancients understood that willpower is a finite resource. Every decision you make depletes it. Every distraction you resist drains it. Every temptation you overcome exhausts it. So they eliminated decisions. They eliminated distractions. They eliminated temptations. They lived with less. They owned less. They did less. Not because they were minimalists, because they were strategic. They removed everything that consumed mental energy without producing results. And what remained was pure focus, pure clarity, pure power. You need to do the same. Look at your environment. Look at your possessions. Look at your commitments. And cut everything that doesn't serve your primary mission. The apps on your phone, the subscriptions you don't use, the relationships that drain you, the obligations that waste your time. Cut them, all of them, without guilt, without hesitation, because every distraction you eliminate is energy you reclaim. Every decision you automate is willpower you preserve. Every temptation you remove is resistance you avoid. And when your life is stripped down to the essentials, when there's nothing left but the work that matters, laziness has nowhere to hide. These three pillars are the foundation: immediate action, physical discomfort, daily elimination. And when you build your life on these pillars, when you commit to them completely, laziness begins to die. Part 3. The daily practice that rewires your brain. Understanding the protocol is not enough. You need to practice it every single day, without exception, without compromise, without negotiation. Because one day of practice builds nothing, but 1,000 days of practice builds unbreakable will. Here's how you structure your daily practice. You wake up at the same time every day. Not when you feel like it, not when you've had enough sleep. At the same time, your body needs to know when the day begins. It needs consistency, it needs predictability, it needs certainty. The moment you wake up, you execute the first action. No phone, no checking messages, no easing into the day. You stand up immediately. You expose yourself to cold water immediately. You move your body immediately. This is the first test of the day. And if you pass it, if you execute immediately, you set the tone for everything that follows. Then you do the hardest task first, not the easiest, not the most enjoyable, the hardest. The task you're most likely to avoid, the task that creates the most resistance, the task that matters most. You do it first, when your willpower is strongest, when your mind is clearest, when your discipline is sharpest. The ancients called this eating the dragon. They knew that if you faced the hardest challenge first, everything else became easier. They knew that if you trained yourself to attack difficulty instead of avoiding it, you would become unstoppable. So, you identify your dragon, the one task that will move your life forward more than any other, and you do it first, every single day, before anything else, before emails, before meetings, before distractions. You kill the dragon while it's sleeping, and here's the key: you don't stop when you feel like stopping. You stop when the task is done. Not when you're tired, not when you're bored, not when you've done enough. When it's done. Completely. Totally. Finished. This trains your brain to associate tasks with completion, not with effort. Most people measure their work by how much time they spent or how hard they tried. But the ancients measured by results, by completion, by what was actually accomplished. And they taught their minds to keep going until the result was achieved. After you complete your hardest task, you move to the next one, and then the next one, and then the next one. Each task is executed with immediate action. Each task is completed before moving on. Each task builds momentum, and throughout the day, you maintain physical discomfort. You don't sit for too long. You don't eat until you're comfortable. You don't rest until you're satisfied. You keep your body slightly uncomfortable, slightly hungry, slightly restless, because that discomfort keeps your mind sharp. It keeps you alert. It keeps you focused. At the end of the day, you review. You look at what you accomplished, you identify what you avoided, you examine where resistance appeared, and you plan how to eliminate it tomorrow. This is not about guilt. This is not about shame. This is about data, about patterns, about improvement, and then you rest completely, deeply, totally. Because the ancients understood that rest is not laziness, rest is recovery. Rest is preparation, rest is strategic, but it's scheduled, it's intentional, it's earned. You rest because you work, not instead of working. This is the daily practice, this is the system that rewires your brain. And if you follow it, if you commit to it, if you protect it from compromise, your laziness will disappear. Not gradually, rapidly, completely, permanently. Part 4. The mental warfare against resistance. Your brain will fight you. It will fight you hard because you're trying to change it. You're trying to override millions of years of evolutionary programming that tells you to conserve energy, to avoid discomfort, to seek pleasure. And your brain does not want to change. So it will create resistance. Powerful, sophisticated, convincing resistance. It will tell you you're tired. It will tell you you need more preparation. It will tell you tomorrow is better. It will tell you you've already done enough. And if you listen to it, if you believe it, you will fail. This is mental warfare, and you need to treat it as such. You need to understand that the voice in your head that tells you to wait, to rest, to delay, to avoid, is not your friend. It's your enemy. It's the voice of the old you, the lazy you, the weak you, and it needs to be destroyed. The ancients had a technique for this. They called it the observer mind. They trained themselves to separate their awareness from their thoughts, to watch their thoughts like they were watching clouds pass in the sky, detached, neutral, unmoved. When a resistant thought appeared, I'm too tired, I'll do it later. This is too hard. They didn't fight it. They didn't argue with it. They didn't try to motivate themselves out of it. They simply observed it. They acknowledged it. And then they acted anyway. This is the key. You don't need to eliminate resistant thoughts. You need to eliminate your obedience to them. Because thoughts are just noise. They're just signals. They have no power except the power you give them. And when you stop obeying them, when you stop letting them dictate your actions, they become irrelevant. So you practice the observer mind. Every time resistance appears, you notice it. You name it. There's the resistance telling me I'm tired. There's the resistance telling me to wait. There's the resistance telling me to quit. And then you act in spite of it. You move your body. You take the next step. You execute the task. At first, this is difficult. The resistance is loud. It's convincing. It feels real. But over time, as you practice acting despite the resistance, something changes. The resistance gets quieter. It gets weaker. It loses its grip. Because your brain learns that resistance doesn't work anymore. It learns that you're going to act regardless. So it stops wasting energy on resistance and starts directing energy toward action. This is the mental warfare. This is the battle you fight every single day. And the more you win, the easier it becomes. Not because the resistance disappears completely, but because you become stronger than it. Part 5. The truth about motivation. Let me tell you something that will change everything. Motivation is a lie. It's a trap. It's a distraction that keeps you weak. Because motivation is a feeling. And feelings are unreliable. They come and go. They fluctuate. They depend on circumstances, on mood, on energy levels. If you wait for motivation, you will spend your entire life waiting. You will have brief bursts of action followed by long periods of stagnation. You will start projects and abandon them. You will make plans and break them. You will set goals and forget them, because motivation always fades, always. The ancients didn't believe in motivation. They believed in duty, in discipline, in commitment. They didn't ask themselves if they felt like doing something. They asked themselves if it needed to be done. And if it needed to be done, they did it, regardless of how they felt. This is the shift you need to make. You need to stop asking, do I feel like doing this? And start asking, does this need to be done? And if the answer is yes, you do it, immediately, without debate, without negotiation, without waiting for motivation to appear. Because here's the secret they don't tell you. Action creates motivation, not the other way around. When you start moving, when you start working, when you start executing, motivation appears. Energy appears. Focus appears. But they appear after you start, not before. So you train yourself to start without. Motivation, to take the first step even when you feel nothing. To execute the first action even when you don't want to. And once you start, once you're in motion, the rest becomes easier. The resistance fades, the energy builds, the momentum carries you forward. This is why immediate action is so critical. This is why you don't wait. This is why you move the moment the thought appears. Because movement breaks the cycle of resistance. Movement creates momentum. Movement generates the motivation that you thought you needed to start. And over time, as you practice this, as you prove to yourself again and again that you can act without motivation, something profound happens. You stop needing it. You stop looking for it. You stop depending on it. You become someone who acts regardless of how they feel. And that's when you become unstoppable. Part 6. The environment that eliminates temptation. Your environment is either supporting your transformation or sabotaging it. There is no middle ground. Every object in your space, every person in your life, every stimulus in your surroundings is either pushing you toward discipline or pulling you toward laziness. The ancients understood this deeply. They designed their environments for discipline. They removed temptations. They eliminated distractions. They created spaces that made hard work inevitable and laziness impossible. You need to do the same. Look at your physical environment, your room, your workspace, your home. What do you see? Is it organized or chaotic? Is it clean or cluttered? Is it designed for focus or for distraction? If your environment is chaotic, your mind will be chaotic. If your environment is cluttered, your thoughts will be cluttered. If your environment is filled with distractions, your actions will be distracted. You cannot build discipline in an environment designed for laziness. So you start with a purge. You remove everything that doesn't serve your mission. The gaming console, the excessive decorations, the comfortable distractions, the things that tempt you to waste time. You remove them, not hide them, not put them away. Remove them completely. Then you optimize for action. You place the tools you need for work in the most accessible location. You remove friction from productive activities. You make it easier to do the right thing than the wrong thing. You design your environment so that the path of least resistance leads to discipline, not to laziness. Your digital environment is just as important. Your phone is probably the biggest source of distraction in your life. Every app is designed to capture your attention, to steal your time, to keep you scrolling. And every moment you spend on your phone is a moment you're not spending on your mission. So you purge your phone, delete social media, delete games, delete anything that doesn't serve a functional purpose. Keep only the tools you need for communication and productivity. And then you add friction. Put your phone in another room. Turn off all notifications, make it harder to access, make it require conscious effort. The same applies to your relationships. The people around you are either elevating you or draining you. They're either supporting your discipline or enabling your laziness. And you need to be ruthless about this. Distance yourself from people who celebrate comfort, from people who mock discipline, from people who discourage growth. You don't owe them an explanation. You don't owe them your time. You don't owe them your energy. You owe yourself a life of purpose, and that requires protecting your environment from people who would sabotage it. This is not about being cold. This is about being strategic. This is about understanding that your environment shapes your behavior more than your willpower ever will. And if you want to eliminate laziness permanently, you need to build an environment where laziness cannot survive. Part 7. The final test. Everything you've learned so far is preparation. The real test comes when everything goes wrong, when you're exhausted, when you're overwhelmed, when you're facing setbacks and failures and disappointments. That's when your unbreakable will is tested. Because discipline is easy when everything is going well. Consistency is easy when you're motivated. Action is easy when you're excited. But what happens when you're not? What happens when life punches you in the face? What happens when your plans collapse? What happens when you fail? Most people quit. They tell themselves they tried. They tell themselves it wasn't meant to be. They tell themselves they'll start again when things get better. And they return to laziness. They return to comfort. They return to weakness. But the ancients taught that this moment, this exact moment when everything falls apart, is the most important moment of all. Because this is the moment that defines you. This is the moment that separates those who talk from those who execute. This is the moment that reveals whether your will is truly unbreakable. So when that moment comes, when you face the final test, you remember everything. You remember the protocol. You remember the pillars. You remember the practice, and you execute. Not because you feel like it, not because you're motivated, not because you see the path forward. You execute because that's who you are now. You take immediate action. You embrace physical discomfort. You eliminate distractions. You observe resistance without obeying it. You move without motivation. You execute despite fear. And you prove to yourself once and for all that your will is unbreakable. And when you pass this test, when you keep going when everyone else would quit, something changes forever. You cross a threshold. You enter a new level of existence. You become someone who cannot be stopped by circumstances, cannot be broken by setbacks, cannot be defeated by resistance. You become someone with unbreakable will. And once you reach that state, once you embody that identity, laziness becomes a distant memory, a weakness you used to have, a disease you eliminated forever. This is the ancient protocol. This is the path. This is the way. And if you follow it completely, if you commit to it totally, if you surrender to the discipline, you will never be lazy again.